learn life from this. Well, I mean, the house is, I guess, a different life lesson, but Mishnah is really like something to take into every word.
Yeah, it covers
Maybe that's up.
Yeah.
covers everything.
Hey, Daniel.
Oh, you're learning and not watching it always. Oh, they haven't started yet.
I recorded it.
It's getting priorities right.
It was nice to see you yesterday.
Yeah. It's nice to see you right now.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Was it a good first week? That was great. Okay. So, good start. Okay. Okay, here we go.
Doesn't feel like Monday morning.
Monday morning.
Very lively.
Okay. On page 148. Okay, so now we're going to get into, you see over here on the top, proper attitude in social interactions. So the world of bitachon, like we discussed, it's not, it's more. It's much more than what people probably think of emunah bitachon. And we've entered into the branches many times, and we've even discussed a little bit of the social interactions, the midos that a person can gain and work on and better and understand based on the sugi bitachon. So now we're going to discuss this at depth, and a little bit of a Hagdama. There's many Hagdamas to give, but to understand what we're about to learn, we are learning the logic of bitachon. We're being educated in intellectually, right? We're using our intellect to understand bitachon in all of its grandeur and where it goes and what it should do to a person, unemotionally. Right? We're being educated logically. We're going to discuss a situation that for some people is an emotional situation. But before we get into the emotions, we have to understand the logic behind the sugya. So we're going to speak about it. It might bring up some conversation potentially, but we have to understand. And that's also important. We discussed that when we're learning this, we're learning it for ourselves right now. We're trying to be kohen, we're trying to acquire bitachon, strong, that we believe in a Kodesh Baruch Hu. He runs every single minute. It's for our best, and therefore we should try to be calm in the moment. Of course, we have to do our ishtadlus, but to live with a Kodesh Baruch Hu throughout all the events. However, when you are living with somebody, you know somebody, you have interactions with other people who are not holding at the same level of bitachon, you have to deal with them in a different way. Like I said last week, I'm going to continue to say that, is that what we're learning here is not really to be used with other people, at least not just brash. Slowly, you want to help somebody with their bitachon, you can learn the sefer with them. But if someone's having an issue and you just say, just have bitachon, that's not proper. It's just not the way to do it. You have to deal with them with empathy. You have to deal with them with midos, other midos. Okay. With that first Hagdama, let's start. Page 148. The author now turns to discuss how a person is supposed to have bitachon regarding matters in the third category, matters which affect a person's social interactions. So whereas most people think bitachon is between me and God, whatever it is, but if we play the sugya out, between me and God, God does everything in my life. Therefore, everything is an interaction with a Kodesh Baruch Hu. Right? Everything's an interaction with a Kodesh Baruch Hu. Aval, he says, Perush HaChelek HaShlishi, V'hem inyani ishto, uvanov, u'bnei beso, u'krovo, v'ohavo, v'oivov, u'miyuduov, u'makirov. V'asher amala mimeno, v'asher amat mimeno, mikitos b'nei odom, ofne yosher bitachon, ha'elokim b'hem kasher asaper. However, the explanation regarding the proper bitachon in the third category, which is comprised of those matters that pertain, how we relate. A person relates to his wife, his children, members of his household, whether that be servants, relatives, or babysitters, relatives, friends, enemies, people whom he holds in high esteem, acquaintances, as well as superiors and subordinates from different classes of people. The proper way to relate on God regarding them is as I will relate. Okay, this is the sugya dealing with people. Who says the Chavos of us? V'hu she'ein adam nimlat me'echad mishnei devar. She'nochri o she'besoch meshpachto krofov. A person cannot escape from one of the following two scenarios. Either he will be estranged, living alone, or he will live amongst his family and close ones. Either you're alone or you have family and close ones. And then there could be a combination. You can be alone from some family but have other family. But a person is going to be in one of these types of situations externally. And the Chavos is going to go and explain how a person who is alone should have bitachon and how a person is with his family should have bitachon. But one extremely important point is that the emes is, when we talk about bitachon, again, I'm just chazering over again and again. Bitachon is coming to control, in a positive way, help us with our emotions. Right? That's really what it's coming to do, because Emunah is already the intellectual aspect. Bitachon is specifically trying to help us cope properly with the situation. Either we're prepared for situations and they don't bother us, or we're in a situation that's bothering us, and the way to cleanse ourselves and clear ourselves up is through the bitachon work. Either one. Now, it is true that you could have a person who's living on his own. No family, no friends, I mean, really extreme. Totally alone. And yet he's happy. True or not true? Certainly possible. And you could have a person who was married with many kids, family all around, and he's miserable. True? Correct. And you could have all the types of combinations. The emes is, I believe, and this is why we have to really learn this, you have to learn it very carefully, you can't just read through it, is that we're not discussing that the inyan of bitachon is not discussing the external situation. If a person is physically alone, then let's give him what we're about to say. What happens if he's happy? Then he's good. Mm-hmm. We're talking about the emotions of the person. If a person is, when he's bothered from being alone, or he's bothered, or we'll see what the situation is. And you could have a person who's married and with kids, and he's deeply, deeply bothered. He feels alone. You can have this. Men, women, this is happening. They feel alone. So what we're discussing here is going to be from the people where you feel. If you feel alone, then we're going to discuss this in a minute. That's what we're going to discuss. It's not about physically being alone. That's just the general ways that when someone who's physically alone, he's also emotionally feeling alone. Right? And again, clear, it's not about the physicality, the external reality, it's about the pneumius, the feelings. And what we're going to do here, and we've been doing this in many ways in the Sefer, is that we're going to work through the situation. Here we're talking about a person who's feeling alone. We're going to get to it, which means it's pain. There's, again, the person who's feeling alone, not the person who's physically alone. He's feeling alone. He's in pain, whatever other, adjective or whatever, not the word, whatever, any other way to describe that as you want. He's in that situation. And we need to, if a person wants, and it could not be, this might not be for us, a person might not feel alone. But to understand that feeling, we have to work through that pain, logically. Very often, and we discuss this also, is that when a person lives basically from his heart. Whatever happens, he quickly emotes, and that's what is the reality. Which very often is not true, it's not proper. Because you have not connected to the situation with your emunah first. It hits your heart, I feel bad, or I feel great, and yet HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not at all there. Until a person breaks down and then he's like, oh, okay, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, help me, you're already really far into it. So we have to work through the pain. Bitachon is an intellectual, logical, spiritual of course, but logical way to work through pain or situations of life. So let's work through this situation. He says, dealing with loneliness. 148 on the bottom left. V'im hi anochri yetzivuso be'elokav ve'es hishtamemuso v'yivtach alav b'geruso. If he is estranged, living alone, feeling alone. Again, I want to make that clear. It could be a person, he's married with kids, but he's feeling alone. Then he should connect with God at the time of his loneliness. And he should rely on God, on Hashem, in his state of estrangement. Ad kan, Shlav Aleph. Habitachon. If a person is feeling lonely, meaning he's in pain, he's feeling bad, and all the other words to describe what he's feeling, Bitachon says, you're not alone. You're with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is with you. Believe in him, trust in him. Trust that he is the one who put you in the situation. Trust in him that he's the one who could take you out of the situation whenever he decides. Trust in him that he's doing this for your best, even if you don't understand it. And all the 7 basic yesodus of bitachon that we've discussed many times. That's it, Shlav Aleph. This is, I'll bring back one of the older shiurim. We were discussing why do good things happen to bad people and why do bad things happen to good people. And the way I thought, there could be different ways to explain the Baal Chavos Avavos, but the way I thought the Chavos Avavos was explaining was there were 2 levels. Level number one, doesn't matter. But that question, that amazing question, who cares? Habitachon. It doesn't matter. Trust, that's how Kodesh Baruch Hu runs the world. Ad kan. But we said, for those people who can't just live at that level, they're still bothered. That's not enough. They're not at that madrega yet of bitachon to just say, okay, it's a Kodesh Baruch Hu running it. I don't have to understand that I'm okay. The people who cannot live at that madrega, then he gave a logical progression of other types of thoughts that one could think. Maybe that Russia did something good in his life. Maybe his great-grandfather did something good. Maybe that Tzaddik did something bad, or his grandfather, or he's taking the pain for Klal Yisrael, or the Russia is getting his Olam Haba and Olam Hazeh. All the logic that you can give, which is still bitachon-y logic, it was after the main yesod, if we can get there, of, you have a question? Okay. Kodesh Baruch Hu created that question. He creates the scenarios. Trust in him that he knows what he's doing, and move on. That's always the best, if you can really be there. How do you know if you're there? The person's bothered. How could it be that bad things are happening to good people? How could it be? Such good people. They learn, they daven, and these bad things are happening to them. How could it be? So you tell the guy, or he's thinking, he's like, well, there's a Bari Olam, and Kodesh Baruch Hu's doing it, and it's for their best. How does a person know if he's okay with that answer? How does he know? Is that okay? Or does he have to go on to more logic? How does a person ever know?
Based on how you feel.
But is
Simple. There you go.
Can it be a response to a prior situation? In other words, we don't understand good for bad and bad for good. So is this in the arrows, or so to speak, metaphorically, of Hashem's, that he uses to compensate?
I don't know exactly what you mean.
That's good, neither do I. No.
Okay. But let's be very simple. Very simple.
Appreciate the honesty.
Right? Very simple.
I think what you're asking is, when you use bitachon to feel a certain calmness, is that a reward? Is that what you're asking?
Well, no. In other words, we don't know like why good for bad or bad for good. Is it part of the metaphorical idea of the arrows with his thing? That
It's a different time. We'll talk about that afterwards. Okay, the point is that when a person is working using bitachon, the logic of bitachon, whether it's just Kodesh Baruch Hu's doing this and he's running the world is for my best, or he needs to go into logic, the way you know when you've acquired that bitachon is how you feel. If that answer is good enough for you and you feel, okay, you're right, I lost myself for a minute, Kodesh Baruch Hu really is running the world and he knows better than me, and okay, I just lost myself. Good. You're Baal Bitachon. You got it. Move on. If that's not good for you, how could this be? That can't be. It can't be. It can't. Then you need to go into the detailed logic. But as we work on this sugya, the more you really put yourself into Bitachon, you don't really need the logic. You come to a real understanding, belief, trust that a Kodesh Baruch Hu is doing everything for the best. Even if I don't understand it, we just sometimes get thrown off of that. A certain situation hits us, very emotional, very intense situation. It shocks our system. We start to lose our brains. And then eventually, when things calm down, that person tells you, do you believe this is Kodesh Baruch Hu? Yeah. Do you believe it's for your best? I guess, yeah.
But what if you're too calm? Is that a problem?
Depends if it's coming from bitachon or it's coming from laziness or apathy. You have to ask yourself that. You have to work through everything. That's what this sefer is trying. We're trying to learn. Work through the situation. Don't just have an emotion this way or that way and that's it. Why? Why are you feeling that way? Why are you feeling calm right now? It's a very important question. Right now, what's going on in Eretz Yisrael? Are we feeling calm? Why are we feeling calm? Is it because we're just far away and we don't really care?
That's probably.
Or because we have real bitachon, but we're doing everything we need to do, but we have bitachon. That's exactly what it goes. You have to ask yourself. So when it comes to the person who's living alone, he's in pain from that feeling of being alone. Remember, number one, right? This person has already been learning sefer for a while now. Kodesh Baruch Hu put you in this situation. He gave you life. He's giving you the situation. It's for your best. Trust. So if the person could say, okay, you're right, great, then you can move on. But if that doesn't help, then we need to work with other types of logic to help the person out, which may or may not be helpful. We'll see. I think that sometimes, we'll see in a minute, sometimes the extra logic could make a person more in pain. It all depends where he's holding emotionally. You have to remember, to mix emotions and logic, it becomes a very sticky situation. If a person is very emotional, and you're going to try to give him logic, you might make things worse. The person is extremely emotional. Something happened. He's really in a bad place. And then you tell him, you know, HaKadosh Baruch Hu did this and it's for your best. And then what he says about HaKadosh Baruch Hu, at that moment, you caused that. Because you brought HaKadosh Baruch Hu in when he wasn't ready yet. And now the person denies. No, that God did that to me? Okay, then he can find some other nation. You have to be very careful. When a person's emotional, less logic is better. Usually just quiet. So this is again, I want to be very clear. We're discussing both how we have to deal with our own situations, bitachon, and how it's somebody else. Two different worlds, total. Really, I want to stick to ourselves right now. That's really what I want to stick to. Okay. Clear? I know I'm making this more complicated, but it's because it's real. If you just read the Sefer straight, you'll probably miss a lot of what's really, really happening. You understand? So I'm making it more complicated, but we have to. But it's really based on simplicity. So if you have a question about clarity, then ask.
But I think something to help with that, what you said last week, was that part of our bitachon is understanding that Hashem put them in that situation, and that's the first thing that you have.
Correct. To do. When we're dealing with another person's situation of his loneliness, and they're really bothered, and they're even kofar chas v'shalom in a Kodesh Baruch Hu, let's just say you hear words like that coming out of their mouth, you're like, whoa, buddy, relax. I know you're in pain, but that don't say things like that about a Kodesh Baruch Hu. Before you say anything like that, stop for a second and have bitachon, trust that a Kodesh Baruch Hu put them in that situation and put you in a situation to help them. That slows the game down so that you can feel their pain. They're not really denying Kodesh Baruch Hu. Again, it's just emotional. Kids say the darndest things. When a person's emotional, he's like a kid. He just says whatever. It's not really what he's holding in his logic. Two different things. Bitachon slows everything down. Trust that a Kodesh Baruch Hu is behind the situation. Okay. It's not just anarchy. It's not just chaos. Tohu vavohu. There's a process here. Let's go slow. Okay. So let's go back there. Page 149. V'yale alibo. Gerus hanefesh b'olam hazeh. V'chi anshe haaretz k'mo gerim bo. K'mo she'amar kasu ki gerim v'so shav matem imadi. In order to comfort himself. And I think it means if you need continued comfort, it wasn't enough. Your bitachon's not strong enough straight to just say, okay, Kadosh Baruch Hu put me in this position, and I'll deal with it. He needs more. In order to comfort himself, he should dwell on the fact that the soul, the neshama, is also strange in this world. And that all people of the world are considered as strangers in it. Right? The neshama comes from high up, sent into this world. It's on its own over here in a certain way. And everybody's considered strangers. Really, nobody's together. Really, you're really lonely. As the verse says in Vayikra, for you are strangers and temporary residents with me. So Avram Avinu says, Ger v'toshav, in this week's parsha, right? He's looking to bury Sarah. He made him, Sarah passes away. He's feeling a little bit alone. He's looking for Mars Machpelah. He says, Ger v'toshav anochi. He's talking about a different inyan, about being a temporary dweller, but he meant it in this world. I'm just a temporary dweller in this world. Now, what are we trying to do over here? It sounds like funny. Like you have a person who's feeling alone. You say, don't worry. No, okay. We're saying to ourselves, like, I don't want to keep using, we're talking to people. The person who's lonely is reading the Sefer. And he should think to himself, okay, I'm like emotionally lonely, but the neshama is also lonely. Well, what exactly is that going to do for the person? That's what you just said, right? The neshama is also lonely, so I guess misery loves company. Me and the neshama. The emes is that we are neshama. The emes is that we're neshama and a guf. And that because of the way that we live life, we perceive life from the guf's perspective. That's everybody. Now, that's not the emes, though. The emes is that we're really a neshama. What's going to live on? The neshama. What was before the body? The neshama. So the truth, which is hard to handle, the truth is that we're a neshama. The perspective should be from the neshama's perspective. The body is just a levush, just a garment. Now, that's a whole sefer. If you want to learn Bavavi, Rishort has a sefer called Das Atzmacha. The entire sefer is about this, trying to recognize who you really are and changing the perspective. But that's what he's saying over here. You can't change it in a second. But if a person would take on the perspective of the soul, then he wouldn't feel lonely. When you're in the perspective of the neshama in this world, the neshama be'etzim, is with a Kodesh Baruch Hu. It's a piece of a Kodesh Baruch Hu. You're never alone. And if you are in the perspective of a neshama looking out in the physical world, then the neshama is always alone. But it's not bad alone. That's a neshama in this world. We put it. You're confused?
No. The neshama is alone from a Kodesh Baruch Hu in this world, but aren't all the neshamas connected?
No, he's not alone from a Kodesh Baruch Hu in this world. He's Chelik Kamal. The body is alone from a Kodesh Baruch Hu in this world. That's the problem. The body, when we perceive life from the body, which is what everybody does, that's how. There's no other way at the beginning until you're mature enough to start thinking another way. We see the world as from eyes of a body. So then, where's God? I don't see Him. And therefore, bodies are separate. Bodies can be alone. Therefore, I feel alone. But it's coming from the Nefesh Bahamas, from the body. The neshama in this world is a chelik elokam imo. It's always connected to a Kodesh Baruch Hu. When the body looks at a neshama, the neshamas are all estranged. But from the perspective of the neshama, he's good. Now, to go into this, to try to use this, I don't know. You could think about it. Tell me if this would work. Try to imagine. We're using this as a living laboratory over here. Okay, hopefully nobody feels alone. But if you feel alone, have you ever tried to use this? Yeah?
Yeah.
In what way? How do you do it?
I realize that, at the end of the day, it's in Hashem. And everything else in the world is just a way to get to Hashem. But you could also skip all that and just realize if you're feeling that, oh, hi, Hashem.
But that's really the first one. That's 148 on the bottom. That's just straight bitachon. Yeah, right? That's good. I'm talking about if that doesn't work for you, to then use logic, all neshamas are, again, logic. All neshamas are estranged, so I should feel good about myself. I don't know. The Jehovah's Witness knows what he's talking about. I just don't know how exactly to use that lamais. I'm telling you honestly. I don't know.
I'm not logical. I can't do that.
It's good for you then. Okay, let's continue. Furthermore, he should comfort himself in the following manner. V'yachshav b'libo, this person who's feeling lonely should think to himself. V'yachshav b'libo ki kol mi sheyesh l'krovim bo, ad zman muad yoshev nachri boded, v'lo yo'ilehu karav v'lo ben, v'lo yischaber imo echad mehem. Now, before I translate that, when a person is in pain of being alone, there's two things going on, there's two pains going on at the same time. Number one, he's alone. That itself is painful. Number two, all those people are not alone. They all have people. And that also hurts. That's alone plus. Right? Two separate things. So he explains that he should think to himself that even all those people who have close ones in the world will in a short amount of time revert to being strangers and alone. And neither a person's close one nor his child be able to help him then, nor will they be able to connect with him. Meaning, if a person's pain is coming because other people are happy with their family situations, that if that's bothering the person, if he can get that in his head, that's really what's bothering him, then he should think, if he can, this is a temporary place. Again, it's part of it, the neshama. This world is temporary. All of that physical stuff, it's temporary. Eventually, they're all going to go back. The bodies are going to die. The neshamas are going to live on. And therefore, the pain I'm feeling now, what they're experiencing now for these 60, 70, 80 years, it's not forever. A person falls into yish, right? Hopelessness, when he thinks that the pain he's experiencing is forever. That's the normal way of a person. He's experiencing a pain, and it happens in a second. Ki'ilu, I'm going to be alive forever, and I'm going to be in this pain that I'm feeling right now forever. That creates a hopelessness. You get crushed under that pressure. You can't live in that way. You're going to live in this pain forever? Or a person thinking about it, I can't, that's it, game over. So the way that the Chofetz, I think he's trying to help the person, which is the emes, is that whatever pain you're feeling in now, based on the situation, it is only ultimately temporary. This situation does end. We believe in an Olam Neshamas. We believe in a place after this, where the families, in the physical sense, break down. So the person, instead of, he gets lost in this place. And we shouldn't know from such a thing. He gets lost in this endless, infinite cycle of lonely pain. Chofetz says, if he's able to, you can try to tell a person this, but you have to try to, the person's doing this himself, think, one second. This is not forever, ever, ever. It's painful now, and maybe it will last 6 to 7 years, it's possible. But that will end, and then I will be like everybody else, and I'll be able to experience non-pain, non-loneliness at some point after. It doesn't mean it's, ultimately you still need bitachon in a Kodesh Baruch Hu straight, that he's the one who's causing this, and it's for the best. But at least you can limit the downward spiral of a person if you can have this thought. Again, hopefully no one's thinking like this, but we're going through this thing. Yeah, good. What? But for a person who's experiencing this, it's not weird.
But so the only way I can pull myself out is by thinking about the fact that somebody else is going to have it bad also at some point.
No, that's not what he said.
Okay, so then I'm misunderstanding.
That we're all going to be the same after a certain point.
Eventually, you're going to go meet your creator.
Well, let me ask you, if you're writing the Chovos Levavos, if you were writing it...
I'm not writing nothing.
But what would you say?
Nothing.
Okay, so then we have to give something. What do you say?
I was saying, eventually everyone has to be, it comes down to you and your creator at the end of the day, at the end of...
That's what we're always bringing back to. I explained this a long time ago. I think maybe it was good things happening to bad people, bad things to good people. All the logic that we're going to use, even the logic, always brings you back to the ultimate bitachon. Like Danielle just said. To believe that my pain is not infinite, it will end, and we're all going to leave this world, is then what? So now we should be scared that of the abyss? No. That's what the Borei Olam is going to be. Which is, if you can get to that place, believing that at some point we're all going to be neshamas, and we're all going to be in that world of neshamas, with the Kodesh Baruch Hu, and you can believe that, and that can calm you down, well then, we could be in this world also, with the Kodesh Baruch Hu, with bitachon, that he's running it here also. And I explained that also then. All of the ultimate logic that we're going to use to help the person is always guiding back to the straight bitachon. That there's a Borei Olam, he's doing this for my best, therefore I should be calm. Right? That's really what's going on here. Okay, let's keep going.
I think here he's saying, I think you're right, you ultimately get back to that, but here he's saying, before you even get back to that, yeah, even everyone else who's not lonely and has their family, yeah, but at a certain point the time runs out, and it's like, or you run out of time first, they run out of time first, but at a certain point, at the end of their life or whatever, at the end of the situation,
it's them and Hashem. It's you and Hashem. Every moment, everyone experiences that loneliness at a certain point, because at the end of the day, it always comes down to the person and Hashem. Whether they have a family, whether that's now, whether it's 20 years down the road, 50 years down the road, at a certain point, that's going to happen.
You could definitely read it like that. I just don't know if that's going to help. Saying it that way.
It's a logical step to get you ultimately to the point where you're getting to.
Yeah.
Well, what you're saying also is your guf is not alone. Right? Your guf has a family, wife, kids, and so forth. But your neshama, your eternal neshama is going to be alone at the end of the day. That's what's going to be everlasting.
Yeah, so that's to say it in that way. I don't know if that's going to help a person. That's what I'm staying away from that way, even though it sounds a little bit like.
We're trying to help people. We're trying to help ourselves. Like we're trying to understand that there's an ultimate loneliness because it's on Hashem and it's on Hashem at the end of the day.
That's not so. My point is that that's not loneliness. That's going to be the ultimate non-loneliness. So, because if you say that there's going to be an ultimate loneliness, but you really mean that's between you and Hashem, but a person doesn't know. He doesn't have that. He can't feel that connection with the Kodesh Baruch Hu. So then you're going to depress him, I think, even more. Like, so then this whole world that I'm already feeling lonely, that's going to be even a bigger, ultimate loneliness. I'm just tweaking it a little bit.
I think people are not feeling lonely.
We might here not, but that's not. But there are many people who do feel lonely. That's why I explained. It's. We have to read through the Sefer, but it's not every part of the Sefer is going to connect it to a person. If you're not feeling lonely, and you've never felt really lonely, you can't even understand what he's talking about here. So, 2 points. For the people who are never felt lonely or don't feel lonely, which is great, Hashem, is that there are those, either this is not for you, move on, or there are those who do feel lonely, and we have to understand what they're going through, even though it's not discussing what they're going through, but what could help them, not so you just throw the book at them, but that you can slowly, empathetically, with love and support, if you are close with them and you can speak with them calmly, you can slowly drip some of these ideas in to see if that can help them. So even if it's not for us, there are definitely other people in the world, many, many, many people who need this. Some people don't even realize that they're lonely, especially if they have a family and they really feel lonely inside. They don't even know that they're feeling lonely because their brain tells them, well, I'm with a family, so then I'm not really lonely. But then why are you so depressed all the time? You have a good job? Because really it's coming from, it's really coming from a deep loneliness that they don't feel connected to their spouse or to their kids. They don't necessarily know how to translate that. So not that don't want to trigger anybody. Again, so even if we're not feeling it, that's good, but we have to still discuss it for those who may have experienced it.
Do you have access? They make note in the page 150. The Lubavitcher Rebbe, he had a letter written on the 15th day of Heshvan. Do you have access to that letter that you know where to get it?
We could find it. We can get it.
Would you get it, and could it be printed?
You just read. That was on 149 on the bottom right. You read that?
Yeah.
I didn't read it. Should I read it? Let's read it. All the people, bottom right, in the note, 149. All the people of the world are considered as strangers in it. All inhabitants of the world, even those who consider themselves as of great lineage, are essentially described as strangers. Now that's a Pas Lechem. That's a parish on the Chavos Levavos Strait. Now, this is probably going to be the letter from the Lubavitcher Rebbe. Our sages of the Talmud explain why the creation of man differed from the creation of other species, and why, among other things, man was created as a single individual, unlike other living creatures created in pairs. One of the reasons our sages declare is that it was God's design that the human race, all humans everywhere and at all times, should know that each and all descends from the one and the same single progenitor, a fully developed human being created in the image of God, Adam, so that no human being could claim superior ancestral origin. Hence, we would also find it easier to cultivate a real feeling of kinship in all interhuman relationships. Okay. We'll get the letter if you want.
No, I'd like to, if you could get it, I'd like to see the whole letter that he.
Okay, I'll get it for you.
It may be very interesting.
We'll see. I'll get it and we'll look at it and we'll see what comes out. Let's go to page 150. So this is a sum up of before. This is the way that they're reading it straight. Eventually everyone dies. If he lives a long time, then he will outlive his family members and find himself alone. Alternatively, he could die first. Any advantages that a person gains from having family who can help him and provide solace are only temporary. And so the person who's feeling alone, pained because other people are not alone, that's only temporary. That's what he was saying before. V'yachshav acher kach v'histalkus kovid masam v'chovosam v'tzarcheim elov v'yachshav zetov mitovas abori elov neshe im yiyah rodif acher inyani olam mitzrachav teig yoso yoser kalala mibli isho bonim v'chesran menucha v'lo tova v'yam yem evakesh inyani achriso yalibo yoser reiku pane beis his bodidus mibli safek. So Chacham Roas and Olad, I'm going to read this, no jokes. There's clearly easy jokes can come out from what I'm about to read. So I'm just asking, I'm going to read it, no jokes. After this, again, this person who's feeling alone should continue thinking. He's trying to work through his emotional state. The straight bitachon didn't work. Trying to recognize himself as a soul too high for him. Trying to say that, well, everybody else is pain, everybody else who has family and things, it's only temporary, it shouldn't bother me so much. It's not fully working. So what's the next logical step? After this, he should think about the fact that due to living alone, the weight of those people's loads, responsibilities, and needs has been removed from him. He should consider this removal to be one of the kindnesses of the Creator to him. Not having a family, it's lessons, there's no responsibility, much less responsibility.
Sounds like a little bit more logic than bitachon.
Yeah, it's everything is, it's logical, but it's all saying, but a Kodesh Baruch Hu did this for a reason, for a good reason. Here's the good reason. Logic, yes? He should consider this removal, meaning not having family, to be one of the kindnesses of the Creator to him. For if he is a person who pursues worldly matters and its needs, so he's working hard, yeah, right? A person has to work hard to provide for family. It's a heavy stress for a lot of people. His work will be much less of a strain on him if he does not have a wife and children. He's trying to give you, again, logical reasons that a Kodesh Baruch Hu created the situation and how it could be for your best. Because you don't have to stress as much at work. It emerges that the lack of wife and children is the cause for his rest and for his own good, right? He's free to do whatever he wants. He's not bound. Again, we're talking about a lonely person, someone who does not have a family. Right? He's going through hard things. So it could be he has to try to see the bright side of it, that a Kodesh Baruch Hu did this, and he's free from the stress, the anxiety of a lot of people. We're breaking under that. They need the first half of bitachon to work on that. If he is a person who seeks the matters of the world to come, spiritual matters, then his mind will without a doubt be more unoccupied and free to pursue these matters when he is alone than if he had a family with which he busied himself. A person loves ruchnius, loves davening, loves learning, going to Eretz Yisrael on spiritual vacations. He's able to go on these things because he doesn't have a family. He's not bound. So, again, logical reasons to help a person who's feeling lonely, to help him feel calm, that a Kodesh Baruch Hu is doing this for his best. We've had big tzaddikim in our day and age who didn't have any children. And you can't say, because of that, you can't say this, but they did very, very big things. What would have been if they had children? We don't know. Bob Rebbe?
Yeah.
Chazon Ish? And there's more. Ribnitz? Some have had daughters?
They died in
So yeah. Okay, so some had and they lost. These are the biggest tzaddikim of after the war. Some of the biggest tzaddikim who helped rebuild Judaism.
Did the Sand Rabbi?
He lost, I think,
the whole family,
like all of his children. Yeah, this is beyond us. But look at these tzaddikim, and look what they did. There's much to do, and again, there's a pain of being alone. We're holding by that. But there's much a person could do if he doesn't stay in that pain, and he sees that a Kodesh Baruch Hu is giving him a different hand than other people, and he can make something of that. You're free to do chesed, you're free to help, you're free to build organizations, you're not bound. You don't have to come back at night, you can go sleep, sleep in the office if you need, and whatever you do. Okay? If you're not feeling this, then it's not for us. But for those who are, then this can help. V'alkein, hayu aprushim borchem mikroveim umibateim el haharim kedei sheyafanu libosem lavodas elokim v'chen hayu anevim bezman hanevuah yotzim mimonoseim umizboidem lechovos habor aleim. This happened. This is why the ascetics, the original Prushim, the Hasidim, would flee from their relatives and houses to the mountains. Again, we're not judging them leaving their families. That's not the point. They used to leave their houses to the mountains so that they could free their minds to focus on the service of God. Similarly, the prophets at the time of prophecy would leave their places of residence and seclude themselves so they could free their minds to ponder fulfilling the obligations imposed on them by their Creator. A person who's spiritually inclined, there's a lot to be gained by being alone. Let's just finish up. The page 152. As an example of this is Elisha. When Eliyahu and Navi came, Eliyahu and Navi never got married. I don't think. Right? He was never married. Right? Take off. Funny. And I'm not sure if Elisha ever got married either. As you know from the story of Eliyahu and his Talmud Elisha, about whom the verse states 12 yokes were before him, and he was with the 12th. The verse continues that Eliyahu threw his cloak over Elisha as a hint that Elisha too would wear the special cloak that only prophets would wear. Haven oso v'amar eshaka nala avi leimi ve'elch achrecha v'amar ve'yelech achrei Eliyahu yishasei. Since Eliyahu subtly hinted to him, to Elisha, that he would be a prophet, Elisha understood him, that he was going on a different journey. And he just said to Eliyahu Navi, he said, I need 1 minute. Please allow me to kiss my father and my mother, and I'll go after you. He was ready to leave everything behind, to go be with Eliyahu Navi, secluded in his Boydidus, to become a Navi. That's what a Kodesh Baruch Hu wants. Then that's my tachlis. And he became a Navi. Elisha became 2 times Eliyahu. And the following verse states, and he followed Eliyahu, and he became his Misharis. He became his helper. So it's not fun. The person should feel such a way, but with bitachon straight and with the logic coming out of bitachon that a Kodesh Baruch Hu has the best intentions for a person, it could open up his mind. When a person's in pain, his mind becomes very, very narrow, very hard to think outside of that pain. The point of bitachon is to say, no, it's yes, emotionally you're in pain now. However, there's a Borei Olam. He has done this for a long time. He has big plans for me. He can help me out. Calms down. The calm sets in a little bit. The pain goes away. The head opens up. What can I do with this freedom? Maybe I can go help other people. Maybe I can become more spiritual. Maybe I can, instead of I can't. So, we should never feel from this. But,
Here's the letter.